Good evening. We're here to celebrate, indeed to launch, a lovely new book called Pan's People, Our Story. I'll get this out of the way straight away. It's for sale here, and indeed you can get it signed later on at the end of this evening. Now, I think I speak for probably quite a few people in this audience about a particularly exciting thing that used to happen on a regular basis, a weekly basis, in the early 1970s. It tended to be on a Thursday evening, and it began with a very exciting Led Zeppelin theme tune, which got the blood going in a major way, then a chart rundown. That was very exciting. There were lots of acts to watch, but in many ways the real anticipation was reserved for Pan's People. In truth, they became more anticipated, more famous even, than many of the acts that they danced to.
Right.
Yes, I'm glad somebody agrees with me. But on top of all that, as well as being excited, waiting for these beautiful women to appear on our screens, we weren't necessarily aware of what a profound effect they were having on dance as presented in light entertainment television, and we weren't at that stage aware of what an amazing cultural impact they had. We're going to have a little montage just to start things off, and the first clip, I think, makes it quite clear what exactly that cultural impact was and just how deep it was, and I think you may well recognise it, so here it is.
If you're keen, we could go out, you know. Oh yeah, I could ring up a couple of birds, you know. A couple of them darlings that dance on top of the pops, you know what I mean? What they call Pan's People, yeah. There's one special one, beautiful Babs. I don't know what her name is.
Give me back an eyelid. Two Ronnies, isn't it? Orange. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Ronnie, okay. That's two Ronnies. That's got the logo on the floor, you know, on the pants, on Conroe side. That's what we've got on the floor. Do you see? No, you've got some.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Babs Powell, Ruth Pearson, and Dee Dee Wilde.
To our children who are here tonight. Sorry guys, in case we embarrass them. We're bound to.
Well, you know, one of the things that interests me and surprises me is the fact that there hasn't been a book about you before.
I'll leave that to the other girls.
I mean, it's a very nice book now that it's finally with us, which is great. One of the things that fascinates me is that at the beginning of this book, all three of you come up with more or less the same phrase. Something along the lines of, I can't remember a time when I didn't want to dance, indicating that you wanted to dance from an absurdly early age. And in fact, you were all born within 10 months of each other. And
Just about that,
yes, round about that, I think. And destiny, I think we can call it that, brought you together eventually to become Pan's People. So what I'd like to do, really, in the first half of this evening, is just get us up to Top of the Pops and see how that all happened. But you
remember.
You all went to stage or ballet schools of some sort. Would you like to start, Babs?
Yes, well, the first school that I actually went to was my mother's. My mother was a dancer, and she met my father during the war, World War II. And they came back to England. My father was stationed in Europe. My mother was a dancer with Team ENSA. ENSA were the entertainment forces that used to go and entertain our boys abroad during this difficult period. And she met my father. She was dancing on top of a lorry, and he turned to his Batman
Like one
and
does.
said, I'm going to marry that lady. And his Batman said, excuse me, if you meet, you'll be lucky. Anyway, they were married 6 weeks later in a church in Brussels. Father was then swept through to Germany, where he was then based for a few years after post the war. And then they came back to England. And my mother always, as I said, she loved dance and always wanted to pursue this career. If she couldn't professionally, she thought she would like to teach it. She didn't want the life of the army because of the travelling that was involved. She wanted a base. So they moved to Buckinghamshire, and my father bought 2 little cottages, and my mother started her school. As I said, I came along just after the war ended, and my brother arrived 3 years later. Babysitting, it was easier for me and my brother to go along to the school to be taught dance and drama, which my mother thought would be very good and educational for us anyway. But I discovered I absolutely loved dancing. And aged 10, I auditioned for the theatre school, the Arts Educational School in Tring, with the idea that I was going to be a prima ballerina. But like my mother, I grew too big. I realised a dream, aged 14. The Nutcracker Ballet was a ballet that was performed by the Festival of Ballet every year. And the children came from the Arts Educational School. If any of you have ever seen this ballet, it is a delightful ballet. And after about 2 years, my feet were strong enough and I was given the role of Clara, which is the child lead. And I thought I had died and gone to heaven. But then I grew, and grew outwards, upwards.
Babsy, could I just interrupt here, just for a moment? Because I always wanted to be a dancer. I mean, it's just ever since I was a little girl, and I'll go back on that. But I remember going to the festival hall to seeing a production of the Nutcracker. And this beautiful, beautiful child came out with long blonde hair and started to dance, and I thought, oh my God, I'd love to be that girl. And then suddenly in the middle of the dance, her shoes came undone. And this girl, who was so professional and so sweet, even though all her ballet ribbons were falling about, kept going. And I didn't realise until years ago that that girl was Babs.
Good gracious me!
I thought I'd mention that because it was such a poignant moment for me. I just saw this, I mean, Babs, you were just so gorgeous with your long blonde hair. In fact, Katie looks very similar. Katie is Babs's daughter, looks very similar. And I just wanted to be you. I just wanted, and then when your shoes came undone, I was just with you there, darling. I was with you. And I just thought I'd mention that, but do carry on.
Well, the one thing that is very important as far as Pan's People kind of evolved out of a group called the Beat Girls. As I say, I grew too big for ballet, and I've auditioned in the back of our Bible, which was the stage, when I was about 17. For an American choreographer, Gary Cockrell, who'd come over to England with West Side Story, the musical, wonderful musical. And Gary loved it in England and decided he wanted to remain and teach. And he taught at a studios called Max River Studios in the middle of London, in the West End. And I saw this audition advertised. I went along to it, never thinking or dreaming that I would possibly be able to get this particular job. And to my amazement, I found myself in the final group of girls. 200 of us applied in those days for this particular job. And I think today probably you would have 2,000 applying for it. But I got the job. Jo sadly couldn't, who's the other girl that I had got the audition with because of a difficulty with her contracts. She was, at the time, I think, working at the Savoy and also at Talk of the Town, which is, oh gosh, we are getting so old here. Anyway, Ruth was at the audition.
Yes.
and it was Ruth who was one of the key people, I think, that helped me get the job. That and a producer called Jim Moyer.
Well, Ruth, can you tell us about your beginnings and how you got to the Beat Girls?
Well, my beginnings, although we didn't have much money when I was a little girl, about 3, my parents used to take me to Covent Garden, to the ballet. We used to sit up in the gods, and I just was enthralled. It was like a magic world there, and I can never remember not wanting to do anything else. Just like Dee Dee said, I wanted to be, and perhaps, prima ballerina. I think all little girls, if they go to ballet, fall in love with it. So that's where mine started.
But you started out with the Ballet Rambert?
Yes, and I then went to a local ballet school, and my teacher said to my parents that they thought I was talented to try and go to the Royal Ballet, which I did audition for, but I was too small. Because in those days, it's not like that now in ballet companies. It can be all sorts of shapes and sizes. But I think in our day, there was a very sort of strict height level.
Ruthie's very modest. She's an absolutely fantastic dancer.
Well,
And to
we know
have a pedigree like the Rambert is the best.
I eventually auditioned for Rambert, and they took me on, and that's where I went to dance. Thank you, Dee Dee.
That's all right.
Followed by the Corona Stage School?
Yes, I realised sort of near the end of my training, I was sort of about 15, I was not going to be a prima ballerina, and we did a little bit of modern dance there, Martha Graham sort of style, and a bit of acting, and I really thrived on that, and mime and things. So I thought maybe I'd go become an actress. But so I went to Corona.
So did I.
Yes,
Dee Dee
you
went
did.
there. And, but I hated it. I still wanted to dance. So I kept dancing.
So Dee Dee, your
Corona Stage School. Funny enough, Ruthie and I both went there, and also darling Louise Clark, who was one of the most fantastic dancers in Paris, who's not with us anymore. But tonight, her son Tony and Anthony and his wife Helen and their friend are all here tonight. Oh, sorry. I was looking over there, but they're all sitting here in the front row. And welcome, darlings. And let us never forget how amazing Louise was. In fact, I don't know if you were all watching that video. I mean, so many of the bits were with Louise, and she was just the epitome of everything gorgeous. So, as well, which was the most dreadful place. It was full of reprobates. And I remember on the first day I arrived, my mother bought me a dress from John Lewis. I know. And I arrived in my class and they, hello, I'm Dee Dee, and they pelted me with ink pellets and things, because I had this smart voice and this dreadful dress on. So I soon learned how to sort of change the vowels and everything. But it was one of those schools that we had Richard O'Sullivan and Dennis Waterman, Judy Geeson, Susan George. There was loads of people. And there was one lovely guy there called Tony Villeroy, who, and I used to say to Tim, Tony, darling, because I knew he was very poor, I said, how do you manage to come here to the school? And he said, well, when I bet on the horses and I win, I get a term of schooling. So that's how he sort of ended up there. But no, actually, Corona was a great grounding. But the way things started for me goes way back, years back. I had an Italian mother who lived in Sicily. And at the age of 17, she went to a fortune teller. And she asked about her future. And the fortune teller said to her, I see ships coming from across the sea. I see a tall gentleman coming today from the Navy or something like that. And you will go to England or you will go abroad and you will have 2 children. One will be on the stage and the next one will be the next Messiah. Now, funny enough, actually, my darling brother, who sadly died this year, is one of the world's new age gurus. I mean, he's been around for a lot and sold loads of books. It sort of came true. And my mother named me Alida Wilde, that's my real name, after Alida Valli, who was the greatest dramatic actress. So it was kind of preordained that I was going to be a dancer. And I went to Elmhurst Ballet School, which I didn't like very much. There was Hayley Mills there, and Juliet Mills, and Fiona Fullerton, who's been doing Strictly. she was at the same school as me. I hated my ballet school. I didn't like it at all. In fact, I only sort of really enjoyed it when I went to Corona, because Eva Megiddo, who was the jazz teacher, was wonderful, wasn't he, Ruthie?
Very good.
So that's kind of how I started my dance career. But I always wanted to dance from the age of about 2, and I used to stand on my toes and say, I want to be a ballerina, because I can't roll my R's, but I sure as hell roll my R's. And I have done that on top of the pop. Anyway, over to the other girls. Yes, sorry, I bounced them all, but there you go.
I could see that one coming.
Next question.
Very good.
Actually, I think that we were all, as you gather, we were all trained dancers, but there was an occasion, top of the pops, when some of the youngsters that came to visit the programme and were dancing away, and they said, "You girls are so lucky, you've got the best job ever." We said, "Yeah, we're very proud of our job here." They said, "Yes, but actually what do you do for a day job?" They didn't realise. They thought we just pitched up on the day and actually just did a routine.
That's a kind of compliment, really, isn't it? Because they think you just can get up and do that. They don't understand the hard work.
Well, you
that
can
goes
make it
into
look easy, when in fact it's very
We
hard.
trained for many years, very hard.
Yeah. Well, Babs mentioned Gary Cockrell earlier, and as you said, he came over with West Side Story in 1958, but by 1964 he'd been engaged by a producer called Barry Langford to get the dancers for a show called The Beat Room. So I don't know which of you wants to take up the story there.
Well, actually, I think Ruth should, because you were the first of the Beat Girls.
Yes, I used to go to. I used to play truant from Corona because I didn't like it very much.
I don't blame her.
And I went up to professional classes in a studio called Max Smith, where all the professional dancers went, and that's where Gary taught. And then Gary got this TV program called Beat Room. I think it's a choreographer. And I suppose the Beat Girls were the forerunners of Pan's People, really, where the idea came from. And Barry was quite an eccentric character, but I think you knew him better than I did, really. Yeah?
Well, Barry was very un-BBC in his attitude, in his attire. He was kind of crazy. He could do it. He thought he could do anything, and he took this idea one day. Top of the Pops on BBC One was going strong. BBC Two started, and Barry took the idea of doing a program called The Beat Room, which would be the alternative to BBC One, but it would be a bit more avant-garde. He didn't want. He wanted a kind of program where anything could happen. And he decided he'd create a program like a club. And the BBC said, it'll be too expensive. And he said, no, it won't. He said, we'll have all the groups, all the singers, they'll all come, they'll all want to be on the program. You'll get them for nothing because they'll just want to promote their records. And so we did. They decided that they would have a resident dance group as a link through each week, which would be the Beat Girls, which were Gary's dancers. And the programme, I think, was first, I think the budget was about £600 for the programme, of which, with equity minimums, we took a third of the programme and then Gary's fee. But yes, we had the Beatles, the Stones, and I remember one day when we had the Who visited the studios, and they were rehearsing, and they just went crazy and started ripping up their instruments, and drum kits are flying and strings are popping, and Barry came racing down from the studios, from the gallery, and I thought, my gosh, this is it's going to be a little bit of a problem here. And he was so excited. He was sucking Bullermans, popping Purple Hearts, saying, "This is great, boys, this is fantastic. Can you do it again? Get more drums." Very un-BBC it was, but that's the kind of, he was a crazy guy, but he made things happen. Anyway, Ruthie.
I haven't got anything to add.
Well, maybe we should talk a bit about Gary Cockrell, who was the choreographer, because, of course, he actually set up his own dance centre, called the Dance Centre in Covent Garden, and you were involved in the whole construction of it, effectively.
Well, as Babs said, we were on equity minimum, so I don't know what he the money he was getting, but he definitely made enough to buy this great big warehouse, wasn't it? A banana warehouse in Covent Garden. And
Before my time.
It was completely derelict, and we used to have to rehearse there. I mean, it was a real taskmaster. I mean, there were holes in the floor, and it would fall down.
Wouldn't be allowed now.
And it would not be allowed now. But so that's how he started the dance centre, and that's where we used to rehearse.
Of course, the Beat Girls kind of anticipated Pan's People in a way, because the sort of light-end, very regimented dancing that people were used to was completely blown apart by you, wasn't it? With your hair down, I've got just a statement like that, as simple as that.
Yes. The difference was, I think Babs also mentioned, it was still, he was the choreographer and he hired us.
Yes.
Where it changed was us.
With Pans, of course, it was a different
There
story.
were a few Beat Girl groups, weren't there,
Yes.
girls? There wasn't just one Beat Girl group. There was the A group,
Yes.
and the girls were in it, and then later I joined. But there was
Yes.
other Beat Girl
It
groups.
slightly sounds like he had plans for world domination. He wanted to
Something
have Beat
like
Girls
that,
going
yeah.
all over the world.
Yes, he did. He wanted them at football matches, like cheerleaders. He wanted them in clubs. He wanted them like bluebells in different clubs around the world. And his idea was that we were going to train these teams. But we had other thoughts. We didn't want to do that. We liked the idea of a small dance group to put dance on the map, dancing to music of the era.
Yeah.
And so that's why we decided to split away and form our own group.
And it was also, we wanted to have more control as much as possible artistically over our career.
Sure.
As much as possible, which had never really been done before.
Yeah. Well, before we get on to your artistic control, let's take a little look at a clip from the Beat Room, which I think should be lined up right there. Dave will provide that in just a moment. Here we go.
You're going to do an omen.
Everybody's raving about Laughing in America. Come along, baby, whole lot of shit going on.
That's enough, isn't it?
A bit frenetic, isn't it?
Yes, there they are, our 6 swinging.
Well, that's well longer than the other clip, isn't it? Yeah. I thought it was amazing.
Now I know why we are launching our book in the Cinema Museum. Did you notice it was black and white? And that has got to be over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't feel old enough.
Might even be more.
Ruth, you said that you looked at some tapes of that not too long ago, and you honestly thought it had been speeded up.
I did, yes, yes. It was actually when Babs's This Is Your Life, when they played a clip. And I think I said to you at that time, did we really move that fast? Because it didn't look like it was speeding up.
Please don't ask us to demonstrate now.
Oh no, no, don't worry, I wouldn't do that.
Maybe after a few drinks.
I'm buying.
It always depend on you.
Well, the Beat Room, the programme finished in, I think, September '65. And then it was, this was the point at which Gary started sketching out, you've got to go out and train other teams of Beat Girls and the rest of it. But also, in May '66, he put out an advert for new Beat Girls. And you, Dee Dee, were working at Bieber at the time, have I got that right? And you decided to apply.
Yes, that's, sorry, I'm getting confused here. Okay. Yes, I was working at Bieber's because I wasn't getting any jobs. And I thought, well, if I'm not going to get a job, I might as well work in the most fabulous shop in the whole of England. And that was Bieber's, and I was a Bieber girl. And my mother and I lived in Chelsea on the King's Road, and I used to get the bus up from the tube and sit on the bus. And I opened the paper one day, and this was an advertisement there saying, Gary Cockrell wants one girl to join the Beat Girls. And I thought, yes, that's me. Okay, so anyway, I agonised, was being the vain person I was. I spent about 3 hours working out everything I was going to wear. So I finally found a neon light orange top and put my sort of false bit of hair on. We all wore false eyelashes and false bits on our heads. And the next day, went off to the audition. I'd already told Fritz, who was the husband of Barbara Hulicki, who owned Bieber's. I said, I've got terrible toothache and I'm going to the dentist tomorrow. Do you mind if I have the afternoon off? So anyway, went off to the Covent Garden, where the dance centre was, and there was all these people queuing up round the front of the dance centre, and I just swarmed in. Is that the right word? No, I think I've had a couple of glasses of Prosecco, that's gone. No, I just sort of went in and they said, right, I'm here for the audition, and the girl there behind the desk, I don't know who it was, said, go and join the queue. So I thought, oh my God. And there was about 200 or 300 people, as was at your audition, Babs. And I thought, never mind, I'm going to have a go. So we went right up to the top of the building, to this enormous, great big studio. And there was about, as I said, 200 or 300 of us. And I was right at the back, squashed against the wall. And I thought, this just won't do. So I fought my way to the front and started learning the routine, which I couldn't do, basically. I was absolutely hopeless. And I remember Babs coming over. She was so adorable and coming to help me because it was just beyond me. In fact, Diane South, who was taking the audition, at one point said, you in the red top, everybody's going that way and you're going this way. So I thought, well, I'm not going to get through with my dancing, but I am going to get through with my personality. So I thought, I'm just going to smile and laugh my way through the whole audition. So hours went past, and then there was about 50 people left, and I was still there. It was so exciting. Anyway, as we got to the end of the audition, in the end, it was 200 girls nil, Dee Dee won. And I got the job. And I have to, even to this day, I don't know how I got the job. So I have to ask Babs and Ruth, out of all those beautiful girls who were so talented, how in the hell did I get the job?
I think you've just answered your own question.
Well said, Babs. Well said.
Vibrant personality, huge smile, your green tights, orange top, and about 7 pairs of knickers, I think.
Yes. Because I didn't know very much about sex in those days. And so I thought, because I had a very Catholic mother, and I didn't really know where anything came from. In fact, I thought babies came out of your armpits. And I know, very strange. And so for some reason, I thought if I wear multiple pairs of knickers, it'll, keep me virginal. And funny enough, that was always my trademark. Because you see,
It took a long time for that to change.
I soon learned.
Somebody else who joined the Beat Girls around the same time was Lauren, Germination of Pan's People.
Yes, there's also a girl called Felicity Balfour Smith,
Yes.
who actually I was at school with. She went to Elmhurst Ballet School. So when we first started off as Pan's People, she was with us.
And also Flick, Colby.
Well, of course,
Flick, of course,
Yes,
yes.
do not let's forget our darling Flick.
Well, of course, in fact, you met Flick at the dance centre, I believe.
Yes, I did. In reception, I remember sitting there chatting to her. She was really gorgeous and dressed beautifully, a lovely American, voice, and she wanted to know where to go and buy Charles Jourdain shoes. So I was able to tell her to go to Bond Street, and we bonded.
Very good.
Just because Ruthie loves the good clothes as well. By the way, I just wanted to ask, everybody at the back, can you all hear us all right? Yes, please say if you can't hear us, because I will just shout a bit more.
Well, one of the things, once you joined the Beat Girls, there was really only about 6 months to go before Pan's People arrived, but in that time you went to the Venice Film Festival.
We did.
To publicise Fahrenheit 451.
Yes, we represented Britain in the Venice Film Festival. It was called Fahrenheit 451, and it was amazing. And it was the first time ever that the Italians had seen miniskirts. Oh my God.
Yes, we had little teeny tiny red miniskirts, little white t-shirts with the film logo on the front and white boots. And we were told that we had to wear these at all times, including the flight over. So we arrived at Heathrow, and then it was just non-stop. Photographers, parties.
It was hair-raising. We were on the plane, and the captain came out and Babs went and flew the plane, I think, didn't she, darling? I'm amazed we're still here. Babs did that a few times.
Actually, that was
for the first time.
First time, no.
That's quite true, but it was only because we were, in those days, we were invited into the cockpit to meet the crew that were flying us. And it was an Italian, it was Alitalia, and it was a gorgeous Italian captain. And he just took one look at Laurelie, and that was it. He got out of his seat and said, "Will you sit there," pointing at me. And he went and he started talking to Laurelie in the back, and I thought, oh gosh, here I am. And I was talking to his co-pilot, and I was saying, oh, and what is that? Rather like the Queen. And what does this button do? And what does that button do? And this switch? And he said, well, that is the autopilot. I said, what's that? And so he said, well, if I take it off autopilot, you will find out. So he took the fact we've now forgotten that there are 350 passengers behind us. And he's
all
now
taking Valium.
the bar, actually, they ran out of alcohol, I think, by the time we got back to our seat. Our manager knew exactly what was going on. But yes, I had the controls as we flew over the Alps. And no, it's true, of a jumbo. It was an incredible experience, and I was so excited by that he invited me to go back into the cockpit for the landing. Laurelie too, but I think it was because it was Laurelie that really was the one. Flick had quite a task as a choreographer when she joined us, because Laurelie was 5'9", and Ruth is 5'1" and a very important bit. And in those days, dancers were very much more regimented. So for Flick to try and, well, Ruth and Laurelie didn't, unless it was a comedy routine.
Yes.
Me and my
did a
shadow.
few of those, didn't we? Unintentionally.
She had to
sometimes.
take architecture and perspective and all sorts of things into the equation when she came to trying to choreograph us all. But just a little about Flick. She came over from New York with her husband at the time, and she found us at the dance centre. She joined the Beat Girls, she joined in the fun and the frolics, and then I think she had tried to escape America, her family, the confines of, and she loved being in London. And I think the marriage was a little bit of a marriage of convenience, because Robert, who came over to study film at the London School of Film Technique at the time, he went back to America and Flick stayed.
And then Flick had a ball, basically.
It was the swinging 60s, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
That was Robert Marasco, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, shall we just sort of fast forward to the crucial date, which, as I understand it, was the 8th of December 1966 in Floral Street? Who wants to tell
yes,
us?
there's a little bit of a debate about this, but it was in Floral Street. And interrupt me if I'm going wrong here, but Gary Cockrell, our manager, decided that he wanted us to go to Bournemouth, I think it was, or one of those towns for Christmas to do cabaret, and he was going to pay us £7 10 shillings. And we thought, for Christmas? No way, because we also knew that he used to get a lump sum and then pay his dancers so much money. And we said, no, if you want us to go away for Christmas, you've got to pay us a lot more. And he actually said, well, then if you don't want to do it, well, then that's it. And we said, that's fine. And we walked out of the group. Bags?
I think it also gave us a great excuse and incentive to actually go away and form our own group, which is what we really wanted to do.
And yes, sorry. And then it was decided there was Babs, myself, and Flick, and we sat up one night, which was a couple of days after we'd actually left, and decided that we would form a new group. And there was a lovely guy there called James Ramble who was going to do all our PR, and manage us. But the thing we really wanted to do was to try and find a new name. And we were sort of agonising over this, you know, and sort of multiple bottles of wine later, Dionysus Darlings came up. Can you imagine we've been called Dionysus Darlings? Anyway, that was sort of thrown out of the window, and then somebody said, I can't remember who it was, Babs, who said that Pan was the god of dance?
I think I probably said who is the god of dance. This is something in that vein. And Dee or Flick came up with it.
No, it was Flick actually who came up and said, well, God, you know, Pan is the god of dance and music. We had handmaidens, and why don't we be his handmaidens? Why don't we call ourselves Pan's people? And at about sort of 3 a.m, we thought that was a bloody good idea. So Pan's People was born.
Well, I actually left prior to you guys, and I formed my own group called Tomorrow's People for a couple of years. And I think the people came from that. That's where probably, because you knew that the group was called Tomorrow's
Yeah, I didn't, but Flicky did, yes. Flick did.
Yeah. So, Pan's People, newly constituted, did their first show on the continent exactly a month after you chose the name. I think it was the 8th of January, 67. This is all in the booklet.
Yes, I'm the dates person, so I've got all these dates
Yeah,
down.
very good.
So yes, so
Vibrato,
yes.
it was called.
Vibrato, that's right, and it was actually the sort of the pop show of Belgian television, and it came out every month. And we were chosen to be the resident dancers, and the way we introduced the acts through dance, didn't we, girls?
It was a great learning curve, actually, because they were very advanced, all their technical stuff in the studios. So we learned an awful lot there, I think, that then helped us later on. Don't you think so, with all the cameras and
Yes.
makeup and things?
It was very advanced in some ways,
yeah.
but very behind in
Yeah.
other ways, because at one point we had this wonderful, gorgeous, sexy dancer called Keith. Do you remember? Who was black, a wonderful black dancer, and I and this gorgeous man called Keith did a number together where, you know, it was very sort of touchy-feely, called If I Was a Carpenter, Would You Marry Me Anyway? And which in those days was thought of as completely outrageous. I mean, how narrow-minded were they? And this show, Vibrato, was actually censored by the nuns. Every month, the nuns used to sit and watch Vibrato and then say what they didn't like. And they were absolutely outraged at the fact that I was dancing at that close proximity with a man, and that he was black. I mean, that's how much times have changed. We've got the most gorgeous black man in the audience here, young Ollie, who was originally a lightweight heavy champion. Is that right, Ollie? Yes. And I love him. I always say to Viv, my friend, I said, give Ollie a kiss on his cheek for me. I say his cheek. But anyway, going back to it was very controversial in those days, and thank God things have changed.
Oh gosh, it's raining microphones. This is actually a sign of our age and a sign of the times. When we were in Belgium, we went into a little cafe on one occasion just to have a sandwich and a cup of coffee, and we noticed that they had a kind of jukebox in the corner, and instead of just the music playing, there was a tiny screen on top that was showing moving picture. Actually, again, because this is very appropriate. And we came back to England, and then eventually when we got to the show on Top of the Pops, we were talking about this video that we'd seen, or this moving pictures that we'd seen that went with the music that was actually you were listening to. And I remember talking to some of the record promoters in the BBC Club after one of our shows, and they said, oh, that can never happen here. Far too expensive. Well, now it's one of the first things almost that record companies are, you know, the video goes hand in hand, and it's become such a creative medium in this day and age. It's fascinating, and we were sort of the forerunners of it in a sense.
But also, when we got onto Top of the Pops, I hope I'm not jumping the gun with your questions, but one of the main reasons we got the gig in the first place is to sort of do filming, to fill in for artists that they couldn't get, a lot of American artists, because there was also a lot of problem, weren't there, with the visas and all that sort of equity. And also if a group had been, or an artist had been in the charts for a long time, they wanted something a bit different. So that also was part of that had a lot to do with us being booked, I think, on the show.
Shall we get you formally involved in Pan's People, Ruth? Because was it March '67 when Felicity Balfour decided it wasn't
she left.
for her?
Yes, she got stage fright every time she went on.
I wasn't much better.
That's not. Oh, actually, that is true. Yes, I do remember Ruthie. When we
I was always the nervous one. Yes.
I shall wait see.
No, I was banned eventually I was banned from the dressing room about half an hour before the show, because I'd suddenly go blank and go, what comes after this step? What's after that?
Darling, it wasn't half an hour before, it was when the clock was going 30, 29, 28, 27, and Ruth was saying, oh my God, is it the left foot, the right foot? Do we do the right? I said, shut up, Ruth! Remember, darling?
I do, but I would do it fine. They'd go wrong.
Yes, she'd be all right, we'd all go wrong.
So eventually they did ban me. No, I was banned for a while, and I just walked around the back of the set and go and have tea with the chippies and
But all the best
backstage people.
All the best dancers get nerves.
Oh, thank you.
Very odd if you did. Your son.
A little story with regards to Ruth, which I shall hand over to her, was talking of her nerves. She actually went off to the ladies just before we were about to record the show. You tell the story.
And we were wearing sort of like Carmen Miranda outfits. I mean, completely outrageous. And yes, I had to quickly dash to the loo. And the BBC doorman there, he wouldn't let me, I could hear starting. And I'm in a complete, I said, let me in. And he wouldn't let me in. He said, no, who are you? I said, I'm not a diva, I promise you, but I did this time do a diva. And I said, don't you know who I am? I don't normally go around dressed like this. And I eventually, I was told off afterwards. I had to go and apologise to the head of doorknobs, as I called him.
Well said, Ruthie.
Well, actually, you established yourself in the first instance on continental television. There wasn't just Vibrato, there was Mof Gaga, I don't know if I pronounced that right, Beat Club, which was a very famous show from Bremen in Germany. I think was the Dickie Valentine show your breakthrough onto British television? Was that the first? In the summer of '67?
I don't know about breakthrough, but it was one of the shows we did. We did a Dickie Valentine show in '67 and in '68. And we did
It must have been one of the first. It must have
one
been
of the first things, yes. I remember, I think on one of them, Tom Jones was on it, and it was when he split his pants. But we were us girls.
You are right. We were actually famous in Holland and Belgium. That's where we were mainly. Long before we could even get hired here. We almost gave up, actually, didn't we?
Yes, that was about 18 months.
Nobody would hire us as a unit with our own choreographer. You know, we refused, to not do that.
Trying to help here.
No, we created a booklet, and we flooded the BBC with scripts, ideas, all the producers on the fourth floor. Weekly we were there, and they're probably thinking, oh no, not that lot again. But eventually we did get the breakthrough on Top of the Pops, but that is probably Ruth and Dee.
But thank God for the shows abroad. I mean, the wonderful thing about working abroad is that they paid much better than the BBC, dare I say. And in fact, quite a lot. We used to get about £40 a week, And then we had sort of £30 for the whole money per diem. And we used to decide that what we'd do is we'd just eat chips and mayonnaise for the week, and then we'd save up all our money so that we could live when we went back to London. So naturally,
And pay for our rehearsal rooms.
and pay for our rehearsal rooms. And we had this dreadful sleazy hotel called the Hotel des Boulevards, and it was in the red light district. And when we used to come out to go off to do the filming, people used to throw money at us. We used to pick it up, put it in the communal pots.
It was the ladies of the night who used to throw it at us.
Was it?
They didn't like us being on their patch.
Oh, well, thank God for that, darling, because it helped keep us going, didn't it?
Yeah, but you lot used to send me out in the middle of the night to get the chips and mayonnaise in that area. I remember.
Talking you ladies of the night, I hope you've all bought sleeping bags because this is going to be
all night.
quite a long one.
Well, look, just before we get on to Top of the Pops, there were a couple of important personnel changes. The end of '67, Penny Ferguson left and was replaced by Louise Clark. And round about March the following year, Laura Lee left and was replaced by Andy Rutherford.
I think Andy was a friend of Louise's, wasn't she? And that's how Andy came in. Yes, Louise came in on the Christmas of '67, and her first job, we were in Switzerland doing a gig there. So that was Louise's
In the
first
airport.
job. In the airport. What, we did a gig at the... I don't remember.
Yes, we were filming at Syria Care.
Oh, wait, I don't
God, I
remember.
remember something Didi didn't.
Anyway, so this is the first classic lineup, as it were, of Pan's People is in place when finally you get some response from Top of the Pops. Can you tell us how that happened?
Shall I go?
Well, why not?
Right, we used to rehearse at the White House Hotel in Earl's Court. And the reason we rehearsed there is because Flick lived round the corner in Bramham Gardens. And the hotel was run by a wonderful commander called Commander David, and from the RAF, I think it was the RAF. And it was full of old ladies and old gentlemen, and they were all deaf. And we used to do our rehearsals there, and of course they couldn't hear us because they were all deaf. And we used to do our rehearsals in the annex. So it was perfect for us. It was cheap and cheerful, and David loved us, and at the end of rehearsals we used to go over to the bar and have a drink with him while all the ladies and old men were racking their teacups, you know. And one day we were just rehearsing. We were rehearsing actually for Belgium, weren't we? One of the shows in Belgium, and knock on the door. And David put his head round the door and he said, "Hello, girls. Just thought I'd let you know there's an audition for Top of the Pops tomorrow with Virginia Mason." Now, Virginia Mason was the resident choreographer of Top of the Pops, and her group was called the Gojos. And we all looked at each other and thought, oh my God, this is the moment. Now, the thing is, we had vowed that we would always be as a group. I mean, the thing about Pans is that we were very, very individualistic, but we were a group. We never changed the personnel in the group. But we decided on this particular occasion that we would go to the audition as individual dancers. Over to you, Nancy Mary.
Didi's quite right, and whoever got, if any of us got the job, we've got to go in there and chat up the producer and the directors and try and get them to come and see us so we could try and get the job ourselves. Well, Didi and I got the audition, so didn't we?
We did.
What was the number we ended up doing? It was awful.
Yeah, Simple Simon Says by the 1914 Fruit Gum.
1910.
I knew I'd get it wrong. 1910 Fruit Gum Company.
So that really was our break, wasn't it?
Absolutely, it was our
And
first
we
go
got
on.
Colin Charman and who else came? Colin.
No, Colin Charman. We were actually rehearsing.
They came to see us. Because we chatted them up, they did eventually come to see us in our rehearsal room.
Yes.
Didn't they?
And but when we were at the BBC doing the Gojos, with the Gojos, we were in the middle of rehearsals and Colin actually walked in.
Oh, that's right.
And Colin's actually quite small. He looked a bit like Charlie Drake. So Ruthie and I just picked him up and propelled him towards the BBC bar, pumped him full of drinks and said, "Now listen, Colin, darling."
I can't remember that.
Yes, you know, we're Pan's people. We're not with the Gojos. If you want dancers in the future, how about using us? And after sort of a few drinks, I think he sort of went, "Yeah, okay, I'll give you a try." And he was very true to his word. And 3 weeks later, the phone went. And it was Colin. And he said, "I kind of would like 3 girls for tomorrow. Are you girls interested?" Were we interested? Oh my God. I mean, the screams. I mean, do you remember the day, Babs, darling? It was just so incredible. We knew that this was the moment.
So it was you, me, and
Yes, well, it was decided because Ruthie and I had already done Top the Pops, we kind of knew the layout. And Flick was the choreographer, that the very first number would be danced by us. So that's how it happened.
Just to explain, Flick actually used to dance with us at first because we decided that we'd be a group of 6, but the choreographer had to be able to do what she was trying to choreograph, and therefore she would have to drink some of her own medicine. And she did. She danced with us for about the first 18 months or so, and then it just proved just a little too difficult to try and remember the steps and create them as well. So
I actually can remember the very first steps we ever did on Top of the Pops.
Go on, you can show us.
Funny enough, actually, it wasn't original because when Colin Sharp said, "Would you come and do a number tomorrow?" I mean, we had no chance to do a new number, so we took the number from one of the numbers we did in Belgium, which I think was Respect, Aretha Franklin's Respect, and we just. Instead of that music, we used the music that we did on Top the Pops, and we put these steps in, so they weren't really original at all.
I think it's the audience turn now to get up and see if they can do it.
Anybody want to come up here and challenge me?
Well, look, just so you know, the first full group Pan's People performance on Top of the Pops was on the 30th of May 1968, and it was to an Elvis Presley number called US Mail.
Yes, but it's actually, You Better Not Mess with the US Mail. That's what it was called. And that was all 6 of us together, wasn't it? And the show was totally live, so you could imagine how scared we were doing that.
Yes, live television, if you made a mistake, there was no edits, that was it. You know, the camera was on and you were pulling your knickers down. 19 million people saw that.
And that happened a few times, didn't it, Babs?
No comment.
Well,
Later.
exactly. We'll look into that in the second half. I said that we'd get them onto Top of the Pops by the end of the first half, and we have. So we're now going to have half an hour's break in which you can drink and eat and all sorts.
And God,
and
that I want to go to loo.
And go to the loo again. All right, that's the end of the first half. We'll come back in half an hour. I don't think Dee Dee heard that.
Sorry.
It's an opportunity to thank you for coming. Thank you.
Oh.
Sorry, girls, I want to chat between you. Am I switched on?
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Shall we finish the montage now?
Yes, please.
Babs, you wanted to start the ball rolling?
Well, I just thought that, and I may be preempting one of your questions, and if I am, I apologise.
No, that's all right, though.
But I would just like to recognise a very handsome young gentleman in the audience tonight, if he would kindly stand up, and that is Simon Barnard. Barnard, apologies.
Yes.
It is with Simon, and with thanks to Simon, actually, that the book is happening. And he had quite a task to rein us in, and many hours and hours and hours, as you're probably feeling at the moment, hours and hours and hours of us talking about the past, to compile it into our little story. So Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Well, we've got you onto Top of the Pops. So I wondered if you could recall any of Flick's more, how shall I put it, more outre routines, because some of them were quite tricky, weren't they? One I think of is quite an early one, Christmas '68, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, by the Hugo Montenegro Orchestra. Now that was a curious one, wasn't it?
Yes, that was one that kept climbing in the charts, and so we had to keep doing it in various different guises.
Weren't you gold-painted squaws on one occasion?
We were. Dee, do you want to tell that story?
Yes, because Flick was very innovative and she had this wonderful idea of making us look like squaws, but we were going to be gold squaws. So we were completely painted from head to toe in gold, because at the time, I think it was it Dr. No that was out, one of the Bond films, and Shirley Eaton.
Goldfinger. Oh, yes.
Thank you. I don't know my Bond from my Bond. Anyway, she'd been painted in gold, and Flick thought it'd be great to do the same thing. Though apparently it's actually quite dangerous, so we did have a sort of nursing team on hand in case we all fainted, because you're supposed to have leave one little part of your body which is not painted. We won't say which bit.
I have to say it's one of my most hated routines that we ever did, and I hated it so much that I would not see the film for many years later, because I just couldn't bear the music. Yes.
Prince Charles actually visited the studios.
Oh, so he did, yes.
On that occasion, and we were asked to stay out of the way.
Such a shame, because he was so gorgeous, and we were up on this podium a bit like this one, and Prince Charles was sort of like in the third row, and we so wanted to go, just jump off the stage and go and say hi and sort of grab him.
There's a great photograph in the book, actually, of these two getting painted gold.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know about that, really.
Fantastic figure, Dee Dee. Come on.
Some, I'm just thinking of one or two of Flick's more other rather curious, odd routines. There was a Gilbert O'Sullivan song called Get Down, which involved dogs.
Yes, they always say never work with animals and children, except of course your own. And we found ourselves working with 4 dogs to get down, and they were very obedient, and they got down and they left the studios.
They were very old, smelly, and they didn't want to be there. And in the dress rehearsal, we were left with 1 dog. But we were much luckier on the actual take, because only 1 dog walked off.
That's right, very early on, however.
And I remember Cherry and I, we were next to each other, and we just looked with terror in our eyes, and so we shared a dog.
Did nobody question the wisdom of dancing with dogs?
No, anyway, I love it, because being the biggest dog lover in the world, as far as I'm concerned, dogs first, humans second.
On a serious note, though, we often dance to a lot of inappropriate songs. I mean, they're not records or music that you would actually choose to dance to, I think. So Flick was really innovative, I think, in the things she did. And I think maybe that's where some of the off-the-wall stuff came from.
Spirit in the Sky, tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak
Our in
tree.
concert with all the bing-bong funny noises.
We didn't always look glamorous, unfortunately. We did have
Very rarely.
Yeah,
We loved Barry White, because we always had lovely, when we danced to him, we always had a nice, beautiful, glitzy dress.
and when we didn't, we used to get incredible letters, of complaint. Why we sort of clothed from head to toe. What happened to the mini skirts and the sexy little hot hats?
Which was the routine where you were a gorilla?
The Monster Mash. The Monster Mash.
The Monster
Oh,
Mash.
who could forget that one?
I have a little...
You were a Martian of some kind.
I was
Green skin.
painted green. They seem to like to paint me.
Yes. Dee Dee was a mummy.
Dee Dee was yes, she was bandaged from head to foot.
The rose in my mouth.
Yeah, that's to stop her talking.
Well said, Babs.
I'm sorry, I love Dee Dee. I couldn't resist.
And Cherry was a little bat.
Cherry was a little
and
bat.
Louise was a vampire.
Yes,
In evening dress.
I have a little story about a year ago. 18 months ago, Katie rang me from the office and she said, Katie is my daughter, And she rang me from the office and she said, you made my day. And I said, I'm sorry. She said, well, I went into work and I was feeling terribly depressed until a friend of mine sent me from YouTube on my mobile phone a clip of you and the girls doing this routine called the Monster Mash. She said, it's better than therapy.
I thought you were going to say it's better than sex. Sorry, everybody.
Has everybody got a rose?
Shut me up.
Well, just before the interval, Babs, you mentioned the fact that you were going out to millions of viewers and it was live, and if anything went wrong, you just had to live with it and carry on. So maybe we should talk about some accidents that happened. Maybe we could start with Gimme Gimme's Good Lovin'. I think it was around 69 or thereabouts. Andy Rutherford's top fell off. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
There's an accident to start.
Babs's face.
I know. I'm sorry. This is a bit like opening the door in a dusty cupboard, and you're trying to, you're casting your mind back to all those things that happened. Some I've got very clear memories of, others slightly foggy.
After we did the US Mail, the Elvis Presley, it was in that year we did this number called Gimme Gimme whatever, and we were wearing these outfits. In fact, there's one of the bits up there was actually one of the numbers, and we were wearing very short skirts with fringing on there and tops with fringing. Now, dear lovely Andy was very well endowed. She had a great pair of breasts, and she was shimmering like mad, the top and the bottom. And of course, you've got to understand, 17 million people live show, and right in the middle of the number, the old bra strap goes. So there is darling Ruth showing the world. Sorry. It could have been Ruth, but it wasn't. It was Andy.
That's what we mean about the dusty cupboard.
Actually, it could have been you, darling, but it wasn't. It was Andy, and Andy's top came undone. So 17 million people saw her, and I've never seen anybody leave the stage so quickly as Andy did. But that also happened to Babs.
Oh, yes.
Come on, Babs, tell.
Oh, we were doing a show at the Rainbow Theatre with Jethro Tull, and oh yes, there's a name potential there. A few fans in the audience.
Your publisher is a huge fan of Jethro Tull. I'll reveal that.
Well, we were wearing a costume for this particular routine, which was sort of like a Greek toga with a little skirt, and they'd all been made fairly quickly, and mine was sort of they were safety pinned, and I was unaware that something had gone wrong until I saw Dee Dee's face, and her mouth just went. And I looked down and I was exposing, I think it was my left boob. There were probably in the Rainbow Theatre about 3,000 in the audience. So I made a quick exit stage left. Somebody found me another safety pin, and the girls just carried on then.
There was an uproar in the audience.
And then I re-entered with now intact breasts. Covered. I'm sure Mary Whitehouse would have been turning in her.
We also did a number, and I think this was you again, Babsy, I can't remember.
God,
we did a number on Top of the Pops, which could have been Noel Harrison's Windmill of My Mind or something like that. And we were wearing these lovely diaphanous dresses, and they decided to have dry ice.
Oh, God.
Well, the thing about dry ice for dancers is lethal, because once it actually settles, it's so
wet, isn't it?
and slippery. So there we were dancing away, doing all these wonderful numbers with all this dry ice, and Babsy was looking gorgeous with all the hair, and then suddenly Babs disappeared. I was just like, but the funniest thing, what did you want to say what happened after that?
Well, we were going around in like a square. Well, we're following, sorry, I'm not very good with the microphone. Following each other around. But there was so much dry ice that I was behind Babs. And I couldn't see her because of the dry ice. And I'm trying to do all this sort of glamorous stuff going along. There's something, But I still, you know, professional, you go on with it. And I'm walking over bad.
We all did. We all did.
following.
He was so professional, darling. Never mind about the dead person.
Poor Babs,
sorry, darling.
Oh, poor darling.
All I could hear as I'm being trampled to death underneath cables was, has anybody seen that?
But that's the wonderful thing, you know, after a while you sort of know each other so well and you are so professional, you just keep going.
Mind you, there was the occasion with Ruthie. Where,
It's all right,
well, one moment you were there and the next moment you weren't.
Okay, Babs and I were doing a shot together because what you've got to remember, what you see on the screen isn't always what's going on all the time. We'll be doing something to the camera, then it cuts to another camera, you're seeing Dee Dee or Louise or someone, and we then go running around very ungraciously to the next shot. And we were running in a V backwards. I misjudged it and fell off the set. And luckily I landed like a cat in amongst all the ironmongery of the lights and everything. I could hear the music and I'm thinking, right, how do I get to the next shot? So I'm creeping round the back of the set. Nobody's noticed. until my next shot, which again was with Babs, and I wasn't there. So she saved the day and stopped the. We weren't doing it live in those days, I have to say. So you stopped and saved me.
Well, no, it was just that I happened to look down and I saw this little person crawling through, and I just said, "Stop! She's not going to get here in time." This little face peered up on top of her. So they stopped, and we were able to re-record that little part.
You were becoming very, very famous on Top of the Pops, but that wasn't all you were appearing on. You appeared on all sorts of shows with Bobby Gentry. You did 3 series with her. Happening for Lulu, with Lulu, obviously, in which you encountered Jimi Hendrix. And a big Christmas special at the end of the 60s called With a Little Help from My Friends, which I believe involved you. Was it you and Ruth and Dee Dee with Ringo Starr in a yellow submarine?
Yes. Famous moment, wasn't it, Ruthie? Yes, we were doing this show up in Manchester or somewhere like that, and Ringo Starr was one of the stars on it. And Ruthie and I, our claim to fame is that we rose out of the bowels of the earth in a yellow submarine with young Ringo. And he didn't have much to say for himself. Hello, girls. I can't do the accent, but he didn't really say very much. But we were in such awe, Ruthie and I, that here we were in a yellow submarine with the most famous Beatle in the world.
How about Hendrix? Do you remember anything about him?
Yes, young Jimi Hendrix. Oh my goodness.
I remember him. He was very, very shy. Yes, and we all used. I remember going to clubs and things because a bunch of us afterwards our show we'd go to a club of the day, and but he was very, very, very quiet, very shy, but completely different on stage.
Until he got on stage. I mean, one of the clubs where I saw him perform was a club called the Bag of Nails, and it was actually almost empty when I went in to have a drink, to letting your hair down a bit after the show. And he started to play, and then as he got more into the music, it got more and more frenetic, and then to my amazement, suddenly his hands seemed to leave the guitar and he was playing it with his teeth. It was extraordinary. His drummer actually went to arts educational school with the idea, I think, of being a ballet dancer, but instead he became a drummer with Jimi Hendrix.
Yes, but he also went to
John
Corona.
Mitchell.
Oh. We used to call him Mitch, but he also went to Corona as
He went to
well.
arts first for a
But
while.
Jimi Hendrix did actually. We were actually at the BBC, and we were doing All Along the Watchtower. It was the number that we were doing for that particular week, and we were grovelling around the floor, and then suddenly the doors of the studios opened, and the man himself came through the door. I will never forget that moment, and the whole studio came to a standstill. And in came Jimmy with Mitch, and who was the other one? Redding? Noel Redding, is it? Noel Redding? Thank you, I did get it right actually. He came through the door and came up to the stage, jumped up on the stage or on our podium, took my hand and kissed it. Well, I tell you, I didn't wash my hand for weeks after that. The thing about Jimmy that was so amazing was that he was outrageous, but he was also the most perfect gentleman. He was the man who would open the door for you and say, ladies first. But I do remember he did actually, is my husband in the audience? Henry?
No, he's escaped.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a wonderful man called Keith Altham was the man who told him to go and burn his guitar on stage. Is that right? Set fire to it? Yes, and I think that's what Jimmy did. He was totally outrageous, but in a lot of ways, he was also the most wonderful, lovely, gentle, polite person.
Well, you know, you weren't just meeting people like Hendrix and Ringo Starr. You were covering all bases, really, at the end of the 60s. There was a period in summer 69 when Pan's People took on Penny Ferguson briefly, temporarily, in order to do the Frankie Howerd show. So you were working with Frankie Howerd. And the reason Penny Ferguson came back for that one gig was because you, Ruth, were choreographing Dusty Springfield at the same time.
Yes, because in the early days, I thought I'd like to pursue choreography. So when I joined, I think it was a couple of months after they formed Pan's People, that was part of the deal, that I would be able to do some choreography. So that's how that came about. But I enjoyed dancing too much, and Flick was a much better choreographer than me, so I was quite happy dancing.
Okay.
But it was quite an experience working with her, I have to say.
She wasn't the most natural dancer.
No, by her own admission.
Sure.
Yes.
So you had to choreograph around that, did you?
Yes. To be fair, though, she taught me a lot because I didn't understand at the time, but if you're singing, it's very different. You've got to take into account the breathing that they have to do. So she taught me a lot.
I just remember a lovely occasion when Ruth actually invited me to the studios to see your dancing and your choreography, and also to see Dusty Springfield. It's the only time I think I ever saw her actually live. I mean, God, I've got to be careful here. To see her live performance, and it was amazing. There was a wonderful sense in the studio. It was in Golders Green. It was the old BBC theatre. And it was...
Because I used to stay with Babs and her family, because it was up in Golders Green and my parents lived in Wimbledon. So I used to stay with your family, didn't I?
Yes, we lived in Barnet at the time, which wasn't so far away. It was a lovely occasion, that great memory.
Sounds lovely. I wasn't invited.
Okay, yes, but I do remember the occasions when Dee Dee did come and stay with us and my family, because our families were all very close to each other. And Dee Dee shared a room, my bedroom, and I used to spend most of the night hearing her say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2.
I wasn't incredibly musical.
7, 8, 1. And she'd be
So I
going
used to count all the steps.
and you'd be dreaming the routines through the night.
In fact, the very first routine I ever learnt with Babs and the Beat Girls, we had to do this dreadful routine where Flick got up on 1, 2, I was supposed to get up on 3, 4, and Babs got up on 5, 6. Could I get up? Could I do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Babs was so big, she said, no, Dee Dee, 3, 4. And this went on for about an hour and a half, and I almost actually gave up that night.
Shall we fast forward to 1972, which is when some more personnel upheavals happened, because of course I think it was in April of that year that Flick decided to stop dancing and focus purely on the choreography, and around about October Andy left, I think, to have a baby, and you decided not to replace Flick, so suddenly Pan's 6 handmaidens became 5, but the replacement for Andy was Cherry Gillespie, of course, who I believe, I say I believe, but the footage is there, it's remarkable, was actually presented to you as a Christmas present by Tony Blackburn on the Christmas show that year.
Yeah, that's correct. I think that was thought up by the producer and Flick, you know, because it was a nice present.
But you can actually see the package shaking.
Yes, absolutely.
Because
She was so nervous. So nervous.
And the first number she did with you, which I think was part of the montage we had
Yes.
on, was Without You by Nilsson.
Yes.
With long Empire line
Yes,
dresses.
that's right. Laura Ashley kind of thing.
So we got loads of complaints when we wore that dress, as you can well imagine.
But the following year, or at least on New Year's Eve of 1973, the day before 1974 began, you had one of the biggest accolades of your career when you recorded an in-concert program. Could you tell us how that came about?
Oh, I'm not sure quite how. As I think probably we'd always wanted that. But Stanley Dorfman, who was a very renowned producer and director at the BBC, who was kind of like a mentor to us, and I think Flick learned a lot from him. We all did. He did that series. You know, I remember going to see Elton John
With
in
Flick?
concert. No, not with Flick, in concert, but because we knew Stanley very well, so I used to go and watch a lot of the artists that he used to have. And I think they sort of got together, and she managed to get him to allow the BBC for us to have our own in concert, which was a big breakthrough for a dance group to get that.
Can I just say that the one thing about dancers is that they never ever had any recognition. Even though we were famous, we were never ever given more than equity minimum, and we were still just the dancers. And Stanley Dorfman believed in us enormously, and he felt that we deserved to have a show of our own, and that's how the In-Concert show came about. For us, it was the most amazing accolade. It was the sort of pinnacle of our career, for people to recognise us not just as, you know, the so-and-so dancers, but as Pan's people dancing in our own right on our own show.
We owe a lot to Stanley because he had a lot of belief in our abilities. And Flick, of course. Yes, well, Flick goes without
It
saying.
also gave us the opportunity to dance to other music and not just the hit parade of the time. So we were able to sort of show a little bit more of what we could do.
I just wanted to say one thing, because darling Louise is not here, so she's not here to be able to sit up here and talk. But one of the numbers that we did in the In-Concert, and I'm sure her children will remember, was a number on cushions, and this became very famous, or should I say infamous, because I was very honoured, because besides Louise, I was the other one chosen to do this particular number. And all we had was cushions on the floor and candles at each corner. And Flick decided that she didn't want us to move off these cushions. And I think you saw the clip earlier on. She just wanted us to just sort of move and gyrate from the pelvis area. And so we were just kneeling on the cushions, and that became one of the most iconic numbers. And also because, although we were wearing very little, we just had sort of suction pads on our boobs and tiny bikini. It was actually the most expensive costume that we ever had on Top of the Pops. But I would just like to say that was the most wonderful number, and I feel so proud to have done that. But I have to say that Louise was the star of that show, of that particular number. She was amazing and looked gorgeous, and we are so proud of that, aren't we, girls?
I'd also like to just say, people don't realise how difficult that number was. It really was. I mean, I took my hats off to both of you. You know, technically it was very difficult to do that for that length of time, to be on your knees and just do that. Very difficult.
Thank you, Ruth. Dee Dee, don't put yourself down, because I think you both complemented each other in your different ways.
Thank you.
I was so jealous. I wanted to do that number. I got to better bells.
Can you just tell us something about your week, as it were? Because when you were preparing a dance routine for Top of the Pops, you were very dependent on what happened to be going up or down. And, of course, sometimes Flick would have to literally throw the record away because, horrifyingly, it had gone down. So there were some scary moments in preparation.
Okay, the charts used to come in, was it a Tuesday?
Yes.
Yeah, Tuesday. But the week before, sort of like on the, we record the show on the Wednesday, and I think probably on the Thursday they'd have a meeting to see what's going up the charts, and they'd try and guess what would be good for us. So we'd all rehearse a number and do that. The costumes would be designed, the set would be designed, And remember, we're recording this on a Thursday, and the charts come in on a Tuesday.
Sometimes it's a thing.
And sometimes a Wednesday, yes. And often it would have not gone up. So that's when the frisbee thing happens, you know, throwing it across the room. And we've got to suddenly either learn a whole new number, adapt a number, and we had to work very, very quickly, and it was tricky, wasn't it?
That's
Yes.
I was wondering if you want to elaborate that, but it was actually also.
But we were professionals, and
We were, yes.
just
But sometimes we
Brief
used to get mail, didn't we? Not the mail, but you know, through the post, saying, you know, Pan's people went wrong and they're rubbish, and it was a bit. You know, it wasn't nice that, because the fact was that sometimes we only had sort of like half a day to actually rehearse and do a new number. So
But you can't tell people that. You just have to try and do the best with what you've been given to do. you know.
Exactly. But people did not realise the speed we worked at. I mean, sometimes for backing numbers and things, we'd have a couple of hours, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So, but as Bab says, that was our job, and and we were professional enough to do that. And people didn't realise that, though, and neither should they.
Top of the Pops played an enormous part of our life, but we also had that other lovely joy of being able to do lots of other series as well. Thanks to people like Stanley, Terry Hughes at the BBC, who invited us to do the two Ronnies series, although we only sort of met them to shake hands and give a curtsy to them occasionally, because our routines were recorded independently and inserted into the programmes. And we also did lots of gigs around the country at the time as well. So we were actually kept very, very busy.
In the middle of 74, there's another personnel change. Louise leaves, and you take on Sue Menhennick to replace her. And it was shortly after that somebody had the bright idea that you should record your own single, which was called "You Can Really Rock and Roll Me," which is on YouTube. You can hear it. Yes, it is.
Actually, I'll tell you what, spread the word, go out, buy the record, put us at number one, and maybe we'll make our fortune.
Well, it was very badly handled, I believe, at the time.
I don't know, but I mean, Cherry was the only one who could sing, and also, you know, if it had been me and I had stood up and said, "You can really rock and roll me," it would have sounded very good. But anyway, I couldn't sing, but actually Cherry had quite a nice voice. And I must admit, we did our damnedest to actually promote that record, and it did actually come into the charts. But the BBC decided, because we were part of the BBC, and they refused to have us on Top of the Pops, much to our chagrin.
Yes, they wouldn't help us
Promote it, no, at all.
And actually, Ruth has got a very good voice.
I didn't know you could sing, Ruthie.
Yes.
Dee Dee met Henry.
Yes,
her husband.
My darling husband's in the audience, and his name is Henry Marsh. And I don't know if any of you remember the group Sailor, Girls, 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 Glass of Champagne. And that is Henry. He played the keyboard, the Nickelodeon. And at the time, Sailor, I think, Henry, correct me, were you number 2 in the charts? No. Okay, they weren't number 2 in the charts, but they were promoting they were the charts, they were promoting their song, and we were there. And he always said to me that I was very aloof and wouldn't talk to him then. I was going out with Rod. That's another story.
That's Rod Stewart, isn't
Yes.
it? Yes. Okay. Somebody, was it Epic Records? I think it was Epic Records. Somebody was persistent, because you did another one. He's Got Magic, the following.
Got Magic, which was even
Did that
worse.
sync as well? It was even worse.
Actually, a few years ago, I met Mike Batt, who actually wrote those songs for us, and he did say that he had an apology to make, because he could have actually done something much better by us girls.
Actually, You Can Rock and Roll Me was written by the Rolling Stones. Oh, no, it wasn't. No, I'm wrong.
Don't look at me, Ruthie. I don't know.
What was the other one?
No, it was written.
It was the
no,
B-side,
He's
wasn't
Got
it?
Magic.
B-side, the
and the
B-
B-side,
B-side.
yes, that's right.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. The early 70s was really a big moment, of course, for a newly mobilised women's movement. Now you, and at the same time you were becoming major icons. Bands. Did you have any contact with them? What did they think of you? I believe, Ruth, you gave a quite feisty radio interview at a university in...
Oh, a lot of our gigs were at universities.
Yeah.
And that was when the sort of feminist movement was going, quite going on at that time. And we'd often arrive at the university, and then the feminists would be there, sort of trying to stop the show. And we did the sort of local radio. And yes, we felt very strongly about it because they thought we were sort of being manipulated. And our point of view was, excuse me, we are running our own life here. We are in control. We hire two men, one the driver and one the sound guy. So are you telling me we're not in control of our lives?
I always think the less you say about it, the more liberated you are.
Yes, maybe, yes. So you were employing men and running your own show, as it were.
We were asked to hold banners up outside the BBC, but we said no, we're better working from within and creating and showing that we are in control, as Drew said, of our own lives, and we don't need to be holding up banners.
Yeah, but I mean, I just said for itself, and we were very successful in what we did, and we were a band of women. Running ourselves a democracy and doing our own thing. So doesn't that answer the question?
Not to say that protest is important, and making a point is important, but we didn't feel that part was important in our lives at that time.
Sure. Well, in 1975, Babs and Dee Dee, you both left Pans People in rapid succession, actually, in September and November, I think. In Babs's case, it was... Yeah, in Babs's case, it was to get married.
Yes.
To Robert Powell, who I believe is with us.
He's in the audience tonight.
Hi. He's hiding.
He's being very shy.
He's put up with me now for 38 years. As have our children.
Not quite 38.
Oh, give or take. Well, actually, I've known him for 39.
That's a relief.
There you go.
Actually, I think the audience ought to put their hands together and clap our children because they really put up with us and they've been so embarrassed over the years. And my lovely daughter Poppy is at the back there. My son is actually working at the Haymarket Theatre. He's an actor at the moment tonight, so he couldn't be here. And of course Barnaby. And where's Katie?
Yes, I can't see Katie.
She's there somewhere hiding.
She's hiding.
Katie, Liza, Ellen, thank you very much for coming. There you go.
So Pans People eventually ended in April '76. Ruth, you were there till the very last edition. In fact, the last routine Pans People ever performed was Silver Star by the Four Seasons, and you had a little solo spot in it as a gesture.
Star falling over my face. Sorry. Yes, with the star falling over my face. Yeah.
That must have been a poignant moment.
Yes, it was. Yes. Hard to take in at the time.
But you went on to manage, am I right, the replacement groups?
Yes,
The
with
groups
Flick.
that actually came
in
with
partnership
Flick.
with Flick.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think the first one was Ruby Flipper.
Yes, which only lasted 6
Didn't
months.
last too long, but followed by Legs & Co, which lasted a long time.
But just to go back to something that Dee Dee mentioned a lot earlier, that Keith, the dancer, because we formed Ruby Flipper, which had a black male dancer in it.
Oh.
And we created this without them knowing the powers that be, and they had their nose put out of joint, and they did not like the fact of a white girl dancing with a black man. And that's at that time.
It was Bill Cotton, wasn't it? Let's name names.
Yes.
It was Bill Cotton.
Junior.
Yeah.
Yes, which is outrageous. So
Yeah.
we had no choice but to form another girl group or lose the gig altogether. We didn't really want to do it.
Well, Legs & Co finally ended in '83, I think.
82, I think.
82, yes, 82. I think we ought to point out, since I'm about to throw questions over to the audience, I think we ought to point out that the book is dedicated to Flick and Louise, and perhaps we ought to dedicate this evening to Flick and Louise.
Yes, that would be very nice.
since they're no longer with us.
Yes, darling Flick, you know, she's very,
They've
very
gone,
much
gone
in our-
before their time.
in our
And
hearts.
sorely
here.
missed, sorely missed.
Flick put up an incredible battle with cancer. I think she had it for
24 years.
24 years. But she never ever let it interfere in her life. It never stopped her coming over to visit us. She considered us her English family, and we call her and her friends our American family. And so we crossed the Atlantic on many occasions. We went shopping, went to the theatre, we hung out together. She was a very brave lady and an inspirational lady, as was Louise. And so we learnt a lot from both of them, with patience, with fortitude, with all these things, and humour.
I hope they're listening up there somewhere and not cringing too much.
I was going to say thank you, Jonathan, very much for being so brave.
Oh,
Thrown into the deep end here.
no bravery required. I've enjoyed it. Anyway, it's your turn now. I don't know, I can't remember. Dave or somebody will tell me. Are we talking roving Mike? So don't ask, put your hands up, but don't say anything till the mic has roved in your direction. So who would like to ask? There must be questions. Who would like to start?
It's always difficult to be the first one.
It
Go
is.
on.
Somebody take the plunge.
Okay, I never had an affair with Jimmy Savile.
Hello, good evening, Roddy. It's on, yes it is. Could I ask something about Pan's People in Concert, the music? Some of the credits don't entirely match the music that was used. I wondered if you knew how that came about. There's music by Duke Ellington and Antonio Carlos Jobim, and they don't appear in the list of performers. I just wondered whether
Do you know
it was
which-
changed at the last minute.
Which numbers?
Yes, the third one, and I think the sixth one.
Gosh, you know more than I do.
Does anybody ever read the credits?
I'm not sure. There may be an error. I mean, you obviously think there is. Can you explain what the number was, the third number we did?
The third number was the dry ice one, more dry ice.
Oh, I think that came from, yes, the two Ronnies, wasn't it? Yes. I can't remember, something happened with the number we did record, but then it didn't work out, and they slotted that in, so that might have come about because of that confusion.
And the sixth one was Willow Weep for Me, which is mentioned in the book, which is, of course, that particular version, I think, is Duke Ellington.
Well, forgive us if we've made a few errors. I'm sorry.
No,
It's
not
staggering.
at all. We wondered if some dances were tried and then taken out in concert.
In our in concert, yes, that one, yes. Yes.
Yeah, and the BBC made a mistake there, didn't they? Just putting up the original running order rather than the revised one. Yeah, I think that's basically it.
I'm afraid we're human.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Hang on. Oh.
That's my friend. She's going to embarrass me.
I just want to know where all the outfits have gone.
God only knows. I think there's a few around. You've got something, haven't you, Dee Dee?
Well, I nicked a few.
I think I've got one sequin jacket that we wore for a Barry White thing. But you've got to remember those, although they look wonderfully glamorous, those costumes, they were made so quickly, and in real life, it was a lot of Velcro, yes.
Have you still got your heart from the love theme? We have these wonderful red hearts on our bums for February
No.
14th. And
I've still got my crocodile from Crocodile
so
Rock.
I. Yes, we had crocodiles at Crocodile Rock, and I've still got Arthur, mine. That's why I keep all my money. I stuff all my pound notes in there.
And Dee Dee lives in.
Am I right in saying that Nick Bullen, who was a costume designer of yours, is
Yes, he's here in the audience. He came up and said hello. Where is Nick?
Maybe he has an answer too.
Nick?
Well,
Maybe he's gone home.
maybe.
I think he told me. He told me that he made a whole lot. No, he made a whole lot of very, very, very small shorts. Hot pants. And Flick told them that they had to be so tight so they could see the crack in our arse.
Well, thank you, Flick. I think she said Fanny, didn't she? Being American. No, being American, she said Fanny, by which she meant...
Fanny, yes. All right,
Yes.
Fanny.
Deteriorating.
Just as well. Yes, we've lowered the tone.
That's even better.
Anybody else? Look, there's one. Look, the mic coming your way.
I'm just going to get a shameless plug in, everybody. Sorry, it's not a question for which I apologise. My name is Sean Tilley. I present Top of the Pops Playback on BBC Radio. And it's just to say that Dee Dee is going to be on this Sunday. And I think the nearest stations around here are BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey. So Dee Dee, there she is. Yes. Yeah. She said, can you remind me on the night? And of course I haven't been able to get anywhere near her tonight, but it's Dee Dee this Sunday. She's on in the first hour between 5 and 6. I recorded one with Ruth and Babs recently, and we're doing another one on Wednesday, aren't we, ladies?
We are, yes, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, so there are 3 Pans People programmes coming up very soon. The first with Dee Dee Wild on Sunday. There we are, there's my shameless plug. Thank you, everybody.
Right, we don't mind plugs, but some questions. Look, there's one right here.
Hi, I'd like to ask each of you what your favourite routine was. I've got a few, but I just wondered what you thought.
So many. Well, I can say, because I actually always adored Smarty Pants, by first choice, because it just epitomised the way we danced, our figures, we were wearing hot pants. It was just everything about Pans. It was just fun, lovely number.
It's actually, my favourite number is really one that only Flick danced to, and that was Bridge Over Troubled Water. And I don't know if there's a recording of that anywhere. And the reason why that was so magical, there were a lot of strikes going on at that time. And this was one day, it was a strike. But we decided to go ahead. We had no set, but the cameramen stayed, the lighting men stayed. Do you remember that? It was completely bare. And she did this number, and it was just a bit of magic happened, and it was just one camera shot, followed her the whole time, and that was magical. I think I could. No.
I'll agree with Ruth on that. That would be my favourite routine, and it was danced by Flick.
That's lovely, thanks ladies.
Any more questions? We can have 2 or 3 more perhaps. There's one over here.
Sorry.
Yes. Join us on stage again. You're all very welcome.
Where's the other question about?
You mentioned the Jethro Tull gig earlier, and I want to say thank you because I was actually at that gig. But given it was just effectively 1 or 2 shows that you did, how much notice did you get, and how much work went into that routine? Because I can honestly say the 3,000 people there really appreciate it.
I think it was the costume you appreciated. I think we had a bit more time than usual. That was planned. Yes, but yes, that was a weird gig, I think.
Well, I think also because the music was so strange, because it wasn't just in 4s and 8 bars, it was in 5s and 7s and 9s. So as a dancer, that was really difficult to sort of get to go. And that's why my counting came into
My main memory of that was I'm terrified of heights, and we were on podiums. Very
tall,
yeah.
very tall.
And I have to say, I was in terror every night. So I don't have wonderful memories of that.
Didn't they write a tune specially?
Yes,
you did 3 tunes, one of which was written
not
specially
in the
for
past. It was yes, it was done to Pan Pipes. That's right, Pan Pipes. And Anderson, what's his name?
Ian Anderson.
Yeah, gosh, it's terrible getting old, so you forget everything. Ian Anderson wrote that specially for us, yes, indeed.
Anybody else? There's one.
Thank you. This is really just from my dad. I don't know if you remember performing on, or filming on British naval ship in Malta.
Yeah!
Because my dad was there, he was 19. He was a young officer and he just thought you were amazing and I just thought I'd say that.
We did quite a lot of work with the forces. And we have some wonderful memories of Malta, of Mombasa, and
Yeah, that's fantastic. I wonder if he's in some of the photographs we've got. You'll have to look in the book. There's a couple there.
What was his name?
Trevor Groom.
Sorry?
Trevor Groom.
Trevor Groom. That's an interesting name.
Say hello.
please give him a hug from us.
I will do.
I think one of the most moving sights, talking of working with the Navy lads and the sailors in Malta, was after 3 days of doing shows in a little theatre in Valletta. The whole fleet had been brought in for these Christmas shows, and we did our shows, and then we were all invited up to the ramparts to see the fleet leaving port. I think it's one of the most moving things I've ever seen. I wept, tears, just watching the lads in their white uniforms with the bands playing, and you watch the ships just quietly just easing out of the harbour. Absolutely beautiful. And I take my hat off and I give thanks to all our wonderful forces. So I see them all.
I think we've all got another wonderful memory. It was in Belfast. We went to Belfast to entertain the troops. Not just us, but I think Frankie Howard was there and a lot of other famous people. And I will never forget the curtain going up. And, I mean, we weren't old, but these young men sitting there in uniform with their guns in between their legs, ready to get up at any moment to be called out. I mean, it stopped me in my tracks. And yes, absolutely, perhaps I reiterate what you say.
The moment the curtain opened, they all roared, and we thought, no, this is wrong. We should be roaring and clapping our hands for you guys. It's the wrong way around. They were wonderful.
We missed our cue, do you remember? Because they were clapping and screaming so loudly that we couldn't hear the beginning of our music, so we didn't know when to come on.
We couldn't hear the music,
at all.
And we had we had our backs to them. At one point, we had to turn and put our legs on this bar.
It was a bit like from Cabaret, you know, where they did the dance over the bar.
We're not referring to the bar that's at the back of this room. We will not be doing that later.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. Who would like to go last? Somebody. There's one.
Hello ladies, I'd just like to say a big thank you for inspiring me to actually get up and dance myself, because without watching you I would not have inspired, wearing up here, I would not have inspired to get up off my backside and get in there and actually do the dancing that I do today. So thank you.
What dancing do you do?
I do street jazz and jazz dance at Pineapple Dance Studios. And I have danced on and off throughout my life, but without watching you, Pan's People, that has inspired me.
Thank you for continuing on. I believe you're associated with Pineapple Dance Studios?
I am indeed, yes.
Fantastic to know that the legacy goes on.
Totally.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a marvellous note on which to end, just testifying from the Horses Marathons to the amazing impact you all had.
Can I just say thank you so much for everybody pitching up here tonight for this absolutely awful night with all the rain, and it's so lovely to see so many lovely faces, and faces, some people I haven't seen for a long time. So
I know, my husband is one of them.
Well said, man. Yes, and dear loved ones and friends who are here, and also a lot of people who support us in various Pan's People clubs, like PJ over there and Gary, who keeps the memory of Pan's alive, which is wonderful.
Also, we always bear a thought for all those wonderful producers that did help us along the route, but are no longer with us. Some of the musicians that have gone to their makers in the sky. We thank them. And it was a great innings. A great innings. We were very lucky. And we managed to achieve and realise our dreams. And we hope that will inspire others. Thanks to Simon, thanks to Marcus Clare, also for publishing the book. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Above all, thank you to Babs, Ruth and Dee Dee. A big hand for them.
Okay, I need a large drink.